Okay, everybody, welcome back. So far so good. We've already done 10 word problems so far. Now we are going to do word problems number 11 to 20. Okay? Now here's how we're gonna do it. So now we're gonna do word problem number 11. It says analyze the function and list down all the possible domains of the function or restrictions of the domain. Diba, remember in this situation, in letter B from 11 to 20, ang gagawin namin dito ay evaluate namin yung function. Di ba remember last time, so far so good, when we were in the first lesson, we have already evaluated the functions, di ba? Inputting values of x. Now, and then solve for the answer, solve for the range. Now, all we're gonna do is to find the domain. Take note sometimes the domain may have a restriction. Like for example, it says there the denominator should not be equivalent to 0. Furthermore, when you take a square root of a negative number, that can't be done. So those are the restrictions that we must have. Kaya that's why nga, sometimes the domain may have restrictions in order for you to make a function more defined. Kasi nga, di ba remember they say, if you set your denominator equal to 0, this will make the function undefined. Kaya nga our goal is to solve for the domain of every function such that we don't get the restriction. We need to find the restriction of the domain so that we will not put that into the function. Otherwise, if we put that into the function, that will make the function undefined. So yeah, let's begin. Like for example, in the first problem, we have 3x plus 6. Do you know in 3x plus 6, this is just our basic linear equation with no denominator. Everything is just above the numerator. So what is the domain? Ito yung solution sheet ko. Ayan. So number 11, the domain can be a set of all real numbers. Do you remember what does that mean, all real numbers? It can be a whole number. It can be a fraction. It can be a decimal. It may be an integer. It may be an irrational number. But not all of them are part of the real numbers family. Kaya nga this one, number 1, it says the set of all real numbers. So therefore, you can put any number you like sa value ng x. That's why number 1 is very easy. Next, number 2, we have f of x is equivalent to x minus 5 in the numerator over 5. 5 is in the denominator and x minus 15 is on the numerator. How do you solve for x? But wait, do we have a restriction here? Look at the denominator. Diba remember kapag may denominator tayo, that'll make the function undefined. Diba? Pero when we have a numerator, if the variable's in the numerator, that's okay, it doesn't matter. It can be the set of all real numbers. Kaya dito sa number 2, the domain can be a set of all real numbers. Just what I said, it can be any numbers that you want. It can be negative 1, it can be negative 2, it can be negative 3, and so on. And many more numbers. Basta't walang restriction dito. And the range can be anything. Next, number 3, we have f of x is equivalent to 12 divided by x minus 6. Diba remember in number 3, we have 12 divided by x minus 6. X minus 6 is in the denominator. So what do? Do we have a restriction? Yes, we have a restriction because remember what is the rule there? The denominator should not be equivalent to 0. For if the denominator were equivalent to 0, that'll make the function undefined. So how do we do that in the solution? We know that if x were 6, positive 6, therefore this will make the function undefined because 6 minus 6 equals 0. And 12 divided by 0 is 0. And furthermore, even though that were a possible answer, this will make the function undefined. And that will be considered extraneous. So to do the solution, this is what you do. Set your denominator equivalent to 0, then solve for x. And that's it. So what we did here is this, diba? This is x minus 6 equals 0. We set our denominator equivalent to 0, then we add 6 to both sides, and then x must not be equivalent to 6. Therefore, the domain can be a set of all real numbers except plus positive 6. Ibig sabihin yung domain dito, pwede maging kahit anong real number yan yung gusto mo. Unless it would be negative 6, then positive 6, then that'll make the function so undefined. Yun po. Next, number 14, mabilis lang to. You know why? We have x squared minus 4x minus 140. In this situation, what is the domain? The domain can be a set of all real numbers. Any numbers you want. Kaya that's why in number 14, you can use any numbers you like. And any numbers will do, no matter what number it could be. And furthermore, they're all on the numerator side, so therefore, you don't have a problem with that situation. Next, number 5, we have 7x all divided by 12x squared plus 7x minus 12. We have a restriction because our variables of x are in the denominator. So therefore, our goal is to set our denominator to be equal to 0. So how do we do that? Ganito kasi yun. Ito yung solution sheet na ginawa ko. Our goal is to make sure that our denominator must not be equivalent to 0. And take note, this is a quadratic equation. For the sake of quadratic equation, this could be tough for learners, but you will get along with it as you practice. So our goal is to factor out whatever needs to be factored. It says there we have 12x plus 7x minus 12. So we know that this is a quadratic equation. And we know that in this situation, normally for quadratic equations, if our a is equivalent to 1, remember this is the a, this is the b, and this is the c. The a is the term that has a variable that is being squared. The b is the coefficient multiplied by a certified variable. And the c is always a constant because c is for constant, right? Now, if this is the situation where a is equivalent to more than 1, not like last time if it were less than 1, this can be easy for you to solve. But now since x is greater than 1, this is what we're going to do. It says that we need to do the cross method in order for you to solve for the answer. So this is the cross method that we did. Diba? Why did I put negative 144 on the top? Ganito kasi yun. According to what I've watched on the YouTube, if you want to solve for quadratic equations such that your a is greater than 1, all you have to do is to multiply a and c together, and that'll be your answer sa taas. Diba? And then, the b on the bottom. So this is the cross formula. Ito yun. This is a times c. And this is b. Tama? And then, our goal is to solve for these two numbers. The two missing numbers which are here. Diba? So we think of two numbers that we can multiply together that yield to 144, and at the same time that can add to 7. So diba, remember that's a and c, the product of a to c, and this one's the b. And then what two numbers here can we put that add up to positive 7 and at the same time they're being multiplied to 144? So we factor out 144 and think of two numbers whose products whose factors reach up to the product of negative 144 and at the same time add up to 7x. So what are they? We list down all the numbers and we have 1 and 44. Let's get your pencil and write it down. Isulat na namin para hindi ka manunutin. So ganito kasi yun, di ba? Remember we have 1 times 144. Di ba? So yan. And then 2 times what number? What's 144 divided by 2? 72. Di pwede. What about 3? 144 divided by 3 equals, this becomes 4, 12, 24, 48. 48 and 3, malabo din. So 4 and 32. 4 and 32. Is that right? 4 and 32? Nope. I don't think so. What about 6? 144 divided by 6. 24. 6 and 24. Do you think that's right? How about 8? 144 divided by 8. This becomes 1, 8, 64, 18. So 8 times 18. Tama? Which of these two numbers can multiply to give you 144 and then add up to give you 7? And that is the one when you have to apply the factoring method. Diba? Tsaka take note, our a is not equivalent to 1, so therefore we have to troubleshoot. So those are all the numbers that we can think of. Or 12 times 12. So which of these can work? 8 and 18, nope, they are not related. 24 and 6, no, they're still not related either. How about let's try 9 and 16? Yes, they do. So we input here 9 and 16. So those are the two numbers that you can think of that multiply to give you negative 144 and add up to give you positive 7. Pair which sign? Do I remember it's negative 144? So dapat one of them should be negative. And we should make sure that one is positive. So the bigger one should be the positive one. So this should both be negative 9. So negative 9 too. So therefore, that's our answer. But wait, that's not it. Let's go back to our formula because remember, we need to put this in parentheses. So when you put it in parentheses, it's going to be like this, diba? It's going to be like this. So we need to have 16 and 9. Diba? 16, 9. And then we have positive 16 and negative 9. Diba? Something like that. So yun, diba? And then all we have to do is to and then do you know what to do here? Ayan, looking back at our solution sheet that I've done before, I've done something like this. Because I know naman our goal is to make sure that it's equivalent to 12, 12. Right? So I know naman if we were to do this, dapat x times x equals x squared. Diba? 16 times x is equivalent to 16x. Minus 9x is 7x. Pero that's 144. Pero we want the one to give you this one, which is 12. So how do you do that? You can factor. Factor out these two numbers. So you can factor out 16 and 9. So when you factor this out, this becomes, ano yun? This becomes 4. So 4 times 3. Then this becomes 3 and 4. Or either way, diba? Then let's double check to see if it makes sense. 4 times 3x equals 12x. No ang labo. There, what you will is that's not the right answer. Although that was supposed to be equivalent to 12. So hindi pwede. So let's try this one. Let's try again. X, 4, 3. How about let's put 4 here and 3 here? Does that work? Let's see. 4, positive, and negative. 4 times 4x, 16x, diba? Negative 3 times negative 3, negative 9x. This one, 12x, diba? 12x squared. And then this becomes negative 12. So tama, it's correct. So therefore, the correct answer is supposed to be 3x plus 4 and 4x minus 3. And now we can solve for x. Take note that in the quadratic equation, we need to have two solutions. And in this situation, we need to have two restrictions. So what are the restrictions? So let's work out on one first. Work it one step, like we have 3x plus 4. Set it equal to 0, subtract 4 on both sides, then divide both sides by 3. Therefore, x should not be negative 4/3. On the other hand, if we have 4x plus minus 3, add 3 to both sides, divide both sides by 4. Therefore, x must not be equivalent to 3, 4. Hence, what can we conclude? We can conclude that the domain can be a set of all real numbers except for negative 4/3 and negative 3/4 and positive 3/4. Because if you were to put any of these numbers into the equation, this can make the function so undefined. And that'll make the denominator equivalent to 0. So yan. So that's number 15. That was kind of tricky but implies the application of your factoring skills. Okay? And your quadratics. Next, number 16. This one's very easy. We have a cubic function which is on the numerator. 3x cubed minus 12x squared minus 9x plus 54. The domain can be a set of all real numbers. How can you say? Because as you can see, it's on the numerator side and there are no restrictions. So you can put any number you like. All real numbers. Kaya di ba remember ito yung solution sheet ko, di ba? Domain can be a set of all real numbers. Next, number 17. X plus 9 quantity raised to the 1/2 power. You know, according to your law of exponents, we know that any number or quantity or group raised to the 1/2 power is the same as taking a square root of that equation. Like for example, we have the expression x plus 9 raised to the 1/2 power. We know that's the same as taking the square root. So, di ba remember ito yun, di ba? X plus 9 raised to the 1/2 power is identical to x plus 9, which is taken by a square root. Now, remember what did I tell you kanina? Kanina, so far so good, we've already worked on the denominator. And the denominator should not be equivalent to 0. Nowadays, we know that that in square roots, the variable or the answer must not be a negative number. If it were a negative number, that will make the function so undefined. And furthermore, that will subject you to have imaginary numbers, which we will discuss in the next lesson. And never mind, because I don't have any knowledge about that. So what do we do here? We need to set our variable equivalent to greater than 0. Because since we're doing quadratics, since we're doing, square roots, we need to set it more than 0. So our goal is like this: x plus 9 is more than 0. So we need to have a number that is greater than 0. And we just apply the algebra, like inequalities. And that's negative 9, diba? Add negative 9 to both sides, and x should be greater than negative 9. So therefore, x can never be negative 10, because if you were to put negative 10 there, based on what your critical thinking, you will get negative 1. And take the square root of negative 1, that will subject you to have imaginary numbers. So therefore, it should be greater than negative 9. Like negative 8, because negative 8, you take the square root of 1. Negative 7, because you take the square root of positive 2. Negative 6, because you take the square root of positive 3. And so on. So therefore, that is the domain. Therefore, the domain should be greater than negative 9. Yan. Next, let's go on to number 18. So item number 8, this can be a bit tough. But good news, it's still easy. It says here that f of x is equivalent to 13x squared minus 117. This group or equation is raised to the negative 1 power. According to our laws of exponents, if you have any group or any number or any value raised to the negative exponent, what is the value? Yes, of course, it's always 1 over the positive exponent of the equation itself. It is the decimal. So therefore, this will become 1 over 13x squared minus 117 in the denominator side, which looks like this. So yan, di ba? So yan, and it is raised to the first power. Translated in positive, but it's beneath the surface. Yan. Or you won't get baffled with negative exponents. But take note, if you were to solve for the value of x, this can be easy. You can do this in two situations. What you can do is this. Pero, di ba remember, since the variable is x squared, we cannot simply, take the square root. Pero, good news, we can solve it in both ways. Here's how you solve it. Ganito kasi yun. Di ba remember, this is your paper, di ba? Sorry. This is your paper, di ba? So, yan. So, we have, ano yun? 13x squared minus 117. Where is it na ba? Never mind, I'll write it na lang here. 13x squared minus 117 equals 0. You can do it the normal way, just add 117 to both sides, and you have 13x squared is equivalent to 117. Divide both sides by 13, and you should get x squared is equivalent to 9. Diba? Just like that. Take the square root of 9 on both sides, and x can either be negative 3 or positive 3. So therefore, what is the restriction? The domain can be a set of all real numbers except for negative 3 and positive 3. However, if you want to try something else, like ang ginawa ko dito, finactor out ko. When we say factor out, we factor out by the GCF. Like 13x squared and negative 117, we can factor this out by 13. So 13 divided by 13 equals 13. Equals 1. So x squared minus 9 na lang. And negative 117 divided by 13 is negative 9. So the 13's cancel. And now we have to do na lang x squared minus 9. Para mas simple. Hey, take note, this can also be written as a difference of two squares. Diba remember, if you have x squared minus a number that is, that you get two square, it's the same as x plus the number, and then x times x plus minus that number, that identical number. So we were to double check, it's x plus 3 and x minus 3. And therefore, if we were to solve for the domain, yun nga, x should not be negative 3, and x should not be positive 3. So yan, so therefore you can solve for the denominator in both situations. Either using the literal algebraic inverse algebraic method or to factoring and applying GCF. So yan, that's it. Next, number 19. This one's a bit tough, but still easy. You know why? Look at the equation. We have x minus 19 raised to the negative squared times x minus 19 raised to the 1/2 power. So what do you do about this problem? Don't worry, mabilis lang to. It's very easy for you to solve the problem. And furthermore, did you know that it also implies about the laws of exponents? Did you know you can even utilize the laws of exponents to help you with this trending situation? With this situation, di ba? So you can use the laws of exponents. So you have negative 2 minus 1/2 or negative 2 minus 0.5, which is this answer. So your answer should be raised to the negative 0.5 power. Diba? Because negative half plus 1/2, because negative half plus 0.5 is equivalent to negative 1.5 or negative 1 and 1/2. Diba? So yan. Pero this is how we did it in the equation. Ito yun. Diba remember it goes like this, diba? So we have 1 over, diba remember we have x minus 19 squared. Pero since it's a negative exponent, it's supposed to be 1 over that equation. So x minus 19 squared. And it becomes something like this. Then remember, if you have a fractional exponent, it can be written as a square root. Or root, diba? The denominator refers to the index. Yun, diba? So that's exactly how this will turn out. Very easy, diba? And then you have this one. Now you solve for the following. Remember, for square root, it's either, but remember, for this situation, you will have two answers. It's either the denominator will be, it's either the numerator will be the one, yun lang. You will have two solutions, two restrictions. Within the square root, in the numerator, and in the literal denominator itself. We know the denominator, the number should not be positive 19. Tama? So it can't be positive 19 because if the number were positive 19, that can simply make the function undefined. At the same time, taking the square root, it's still easy. We know it's supposed to be greater than 19. So here's how we solve. Ito yun. Diba remember sa denominator, it goes like this. X minus 19 equals 0. So add 19 to both sides and you have x plus 19. So x must not be equivalent to 19. At the same time, kapag mag-square root tayo, it should be greater than 19. So therefore, x must not be greater than 19 and not equal to it. So yan. Last but not least, we have this very complexified equation, which is f of x is raised to, f of x is equivalent to 20x raised to the negative cubed and times 20 minus x, quantity raised to the 1/2 power, or taken by a square root, something like that. And we have 2x squared minus 10x quantity raised to the negative 1/2 power. So this is a tricky way on how to solve for the equation. But don't worry, just like what I've said, it's still easy for you to solve. I'm sorry bro to take out the paper. So ganito kasi yun. I'm sorry bro. I'm sorry guys ha. So yan. So diba remember this is your solution, diba? So ito yun. So this is, ano yun? This is what we get when we have, ano yun? 20x raised to the negative 3. So that's the same as, remember, this can be written as 20x raised to the negative thirds is equivalent to 1 over 20x raised to the third. And 20x is simply 20x times 20x times 20x. Diba? Pero it's 1 over. So that's why here you got 1 over 8,000 and x cubed. Diba? So yan, we have 8,000 x cubed. Diba? Now, diba remember sabi dito sa pangalawa, sa second equation, we have this one. 20 minus x raised to the 1/2 power. And that's positive, so it stays in the numerator. Just like that. So 20x raised to the 1/2 power. Remember, if you were to take any number or expression which is raised to the 1/2 power, is always the square root. Diba? Based on the index. Kapag 1/3 power, cube root. Diba? Kapag 1/4 power, root of 4. And so on. Gets? That's the rules of exponents that we taught you before. And now you know. So therefore, in the numerator side, we have 20 minus x, which is, you know, taken by a square root. Last but not least, we have this. Ito yun. It says here, we have 2x squared minus 10x raised to the negative 1/2. Remember, if you're raising with the negative 1/2, we know that it's going to be a negative. So that can be the same as like this. Diba remember it says here we have, ano yun, what did I say here? Ang sabi ko dito, we have, wait lang ha, 2x squared. 2x squared minus 10x. I'll write it for you. 2x squared minus 10x. Diba remember this is the formula, diba? 2x squared minus 10x all raised to the negative 1/2. Tama? We know that this is negative, so therefore we are going to have to translate that by putting it downwards. Okay? Just like that. But yet, it's still being raised to the 1/2 power. And any fraction, and any number raised to the 1/2 power is the same as square root. So it's the same as 1 over the square root of 2x squared minus 10x, which is this answer. Okay? Now, going back to our equation here. Ito yun. So, this is our equation. So, now we have something like this. And if we were to multiply this all together, take note the ones, they can be combined together. And now, all we have to do is to solve for x. What are the restrictions of the domain? Like, for example, in 8,000 x cubed, we know that the domain should not be 0. Because 0 raised to the cube will make 8,000 automatically be 0. So, hindi pwede ang 0, sure na yan. Ito yung solution sheet na ginawa ko. You want to see my solution sheet? So, let me write it for you. Because I think I have no solution sheet there. So, yan. Di ba remember we have 8,000x cubed equals 0. So, we take the cube root of 8,000. Di ba? And that'll be, ano yun? 8,000x cubed. Di ba? And that'll be, you know, 20x. So, 20x is equivalent to 0. Divide both sides by 20. So, therefore, x is just 0. Or 0 over 20. So, that's undefined. Very undefined talaga yung function na yan. Kaya that's why x may not be equivalent to 0. Hindi pwede to. That's 1. Next, there's more. Diba remember 20 minus x? So, we have something like this. Diba remember 20 minus x equals 0. But because remember, we want the number that is more than 0, so therefore we need to add that. We can change that to negative x plus 20 equals 0. Subtract both sides by negative 20. Subtract both sides by negative 20, you get negative x. Negative x is this one, negative 20. Divide both sides by negative 1. Therefore, x must be less than 20. So, yeah, di ba remember, x must be less than 20. Like, for example, we have 19, 18, 17, 16. Because if it were more than 20, like, for example, it would be 21, you will have an imaginary number. So, hindi pwede yan. So, therefore, that's the second condition. X must not be equivalent to 0, and x must be less than 20. There's still the third one, which is 2x squared minus 10x, but it's in the denominator. So how do we solve? We know in general, it should not be equivalent to 0. Because remember, it's in the denominator side, so therefore, hindi pwede maging 0 yan. At the same time, since it's square root, it should not be equivalent to 0. So therefore, ito yung solution namin. Ganito kasi yun. Let me write it here na lang. So, di ba remember we have, ano yung formula? Wait lang ha. It's a big mess. We have this one. So, ganito kasi yun. 2x squared minus 10x equals 0. Diba? Pero since it's taken by the square root, we want it more than 0. Take note that we can factor out by the GCF. We can factor this out by dividing it by 2. This leaves out to be x squared minus 5x equals 0. Tama? Pero since this is a general quadratic equation, we need to put 2 parentheses here. What two numbers that you can multiply together that will yield to negative 5, and then to the constant, diba remember ito yun. If you were to write it in the normal way, it would go like this. Ganito kasi ang normal way. X squared minus 5x plus 0. So yan. What two numbers that you can multiply together that give you 0 and that add to give you 5? We know that 0 and 5. 5 times 0 is automatically 0 thanks to the 0 property of multiplication. Now, what about for x? We know that x is supposed to be negative 5. So parang ganito siya. Diba? So 0 times x is x. 0x. X squared to x squared. X times x is x squared. 0x, negative 5x. So 0 minus 5, negative 5. And at the same time, 0 times 5 is just 0. So therefore, we know that x minus 5 equals 0. Therefore, x must not be equivalent to 5. So those are the three conditions. So what were the three conditions that I wrote? X must not be equivalent to 0. That is the first condition. X must not be equivalent to 0. X must not be equivalent to 5. And at the same time, x should be less than 20. So therefore, the number should be, wait, tama ba? Should be less than 20. Tama? So yun lang. And those are the possible possible restraints of the domain. So if I were to double check on my literal solution sheet, ito yun. Please wait a moment. So yan, di ba remember this my solution sheet, di ba? We have 20x raised to the negative cube, it becomes like this. And then 20 minus x quantity raised to the 1/2 power, it becomes something like this. And then 2x squared, it becomes something like this, right? And then we have something like this. Yung naka-blue, that's the first one. Yung naka-red, that's the second one. Yung naka-green, that's the third one. Okay? And now, all we have to do is this one. Then I put this all together para hindi ako mahirapan. Okay? Yeah, this can be factored out. Diba, remember you can factor this out, equivalent to 0. Diba, you can factor out the 2's. The 2's cancel. Diba? Or you can even factor out the, you can even factor out 2x. So that you'll just be left with x plus 5. So that you can divide by 2x automatically. Diba? So yun. And then when you solve, you already know na the answer. So ito yun, diba? Ito yun. And then we divide both sides by 2x. Diba? Yan. So yun lang. So those are the facts. So therefore, those are the facts and those are the solutions, okay? And then we have the domain can be a set of all real numbers. So therefore, what can we conclude? The domain can be a set of all real numbers except 0, which you worked in the first one. The domain should be less than 20, which is that one, the second one. And the third one is the domain should not be equivalent to 5, should not be equal to 5, and should be less than 0. Yan. And that's it. And the domain should not be less, and then these are condition. Yun lang. And that's it. I hope this video had helped you. If you have a problem regarding about your studies, don't hesitate to ask me. For more math videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. God bless ka na sa pag-aaral mo sa senior high. God bless.